taking care of our bodies is the gift that keeps on giving, because if you don't have your health, you truly don't have much. I mean, look, you can enjoy life in whatever health, in whatever state of health you're at. But if your goal is to be healthy and vibrant and make a big splash in the world, it's going to be a lot easier to do that in a body that feels vibrant and alive.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
The Health in the Real World podcast is sponsored by most exercises and workouts, whether they be running, biking, elliptical, rowing machine, traditional weightlifting, or even CrossFit, do not give you a balanced workout. And when you do workouts that neglect even one area, you're out of balance, resulting in pain and injury as well. Achieve your goals with the fitness program your chiropractor would love. Visit chrisjanke.com/pod to watch the free video. Hello and welcome to Health in the Real World. I'm Chris Janke, and I'm joined today with Cody Maher. Cody has a great story. She's a coach. She helps people achieve their health goals, and has been through quite a story. Cody, it sounds like we have some cool stuff to talk about. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you again for joining me. Give us a little detail about what you've been through and what has kind of informed where you are as a coach, and everything that you talk about with people.
Sounds good. I will. So I started off my professional life as a circus performer, actually, in the circus. I was an aerialist, and I taught adult aerial classes and performed all over the world. And then about 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with an inflammatory bowel disease called ulcerative colitis. And I went through, I was pretty well managed with medication for the first 7 or so years, and things got really rough for me in 2010. And I ended up having to have my entire large intestine removed and 6 subsequent abdominal surgeries. So that all happened, funnily enough, right as I was going to health coaching school. So I was sort of immersed in my own wellness process and in the learning of wellness. So yeah, that's really what informs my work with people today, is my own experience. Of course, I have bits and pieces that I pull from, different certifications that I've done, but really it's been from my own training ground of my own body.
Yeah, I think that's where you really get the kind of street credit, right? It's like,
yeah,
I've been through it and I can coach you through it as well.
Yeah, 100%.
What was, how long ago was the surgery?
This, well, they started in 2013. I had my first surgery in 2013, and my last surgery was in 2018. So it's been about 4 years. Okay.
And so the people that you coach and help with their health journeys,
mm-hmm.
are a lot of them coming from a similar background, or do you get all kinds of people all over the spectrum?
Yeah, I get all kinds of people. What I'm really zeroing in on these days is working with something that I'm calling chronic wellness. It's a program that I'm actually developing right now, and it's designed for the chronic illness community, but that is a pretty expansive definition in my book, because if someone's waking up and not feeling their best every day, I sort of consider that a chronic, maybe not illness by the books, but a chronic unwellness, right? So I'm really passionate about helping people sort of shift out of the mindset of illness and the mindset of disease and the mindset of diagnosis, and really work with the principle that our bodies are at any given time mostly well. And we just are trained to focus on what's wrong, because that's the society and the brains that we all have. We focus on the negative. That's just part of being human. So really, I'm working with a wide variety of people, but it's all geared around helping them feel empowered in their own wellness and having skills and tools and ways that they can work with their wellness on a daily basis, so that, when illness does come around, it's a different experience.
That makes a lot of sense. I like how you say that our bodies are mostly well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people to listen and learn from is Dr. Zach Bush. And he says, he's worked with cancer patients for a long time. And he said that when someone comes into his office who has a cancer diagnosis, he spends 2 hours first things talking to them about what about their body is well, what is
Mm,
well, what is working well. Obviously when I've experienced this too, it's very challenging when you're not feeling well to focus on wellness and to
right.
focus on the parts of your body. But, it can be really life-changing simply to wake up every day if you are struggling with something chronic, and just be like, wow, my hands feel great today. I can really move my knees are really feeling loose or whatever it is. So I really work on in a holistic manner. So it's not just about diets and supplements, which I'm incredibly well versed in, but it's also about training our minds to support our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, even something like, if you're feeling on top of the world and then you stub your toe, like that one toe stub takes all your attention and we now put it on that, and every good feeling part of your body from before, you're just not aware of it anymore because everything is in that toe, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I'm really interested in this part of our human experience. And I know there's a lot of reasons why we do that. We're wired this way. We're wired to focus on the negative for
Right.
reasons. And we most of us live in a pretty stressful, relatively situations. So it's not surprising, but it is amazing how that's such a good example. Something like a splinter or, a hangnail or whatever it is can really just become the entire focus of your day.
Right.
But for me, because I've dealt with chronic pain for so long, um, I really had to learn this. And most people that have some sort of chronic problem in their life learn that they can sort of function with the pain. And it becomes this sort of dance that you're doing where, you might be in a conversation and laughing with friends and in incredible pain at the same time. And, I feel like sometimes we get into this trap in the wellness world where it's like, we have to be 100% well at all times. And that's success. And that's what it means to be healthy. And actually, for me, what it means to be healthy is like really holding one in each hand and being like, I stubbed my toe really hurts, but I can still really enjoy this beautiful sunset, or I can
Mm,
still really enjoy this amazing conversation that I'm having with a friend. And it doesn't have to be about this pursuit of perfect health at all times.
right. Right. So how do you have any practical strategies as far as how you do, as you said, hold one in both hands? Like
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Well, a lot of it for me, in terms of when I'm working with people, has to do with setting up, ways to train your brain throughout the day. Like it's one thing to have, it's great to have a morning practice or an evening practice or whatever people do, but really having something, I call it an anchor that you can do multiple times a day that brings you back to something that you've committed to. So when I'm working with someone, like, all right, let's commit to chronic wellness together. Like, let's commit to that. We're going to commit to that. We're both in this commitment. You've made the commitment. And now how do we really start to infuse that commitment into multiple moments of your day? Because that's how change happens. It happens with consistency. So it can be as simple as, for me, it's really simple. It's just like, when I catch myself in stress, I put my hand right here. I take one deep breath and I just like say, I'm well and I'm safe. And that's it. And it took a while to remember to do that. So there's strategies like setting an alarm on your phone to go off annoyingly every hour, which really work. They work really well.
Yeah.
And and then over time, it's become more of a habit. Like I notice when I don't let myself get to a certain level of stress before that starts to happen for me. So it's really about these I'm all about small practices that can be infused in your regular daily life that over time, a week, a month, a year, you're going to feel, oh, wow, I'm in a much different place than I was before.
Right, you're right. And I can definitely attest to those alarms or doing something like that where you're just so hyper aware of this new habit that you want to build that you're putting it in your calendar, your day planner. It's just like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how our bodies learn, is through habit, through repetition. And yeah, once you've repeated it enough, it just becomes a part of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times the breath is a really big part of this for people, because when we're in pain, we don't really breathe. It's kind of this sort of catch-22, like breathing helps relax you and helps with pain. But when you're in pain, you clench up and you tense up. And whether it's emotional pain or physical pain or spiritual pain, it can be any type of pain, but so many people just aren't breathing. And it's something that we really have to train ourselves to do, especially if we're adults. Kids, most of the time they're doing just great with the breathing. But as we become adults and we have all these like mini traumas and major traumas, deep breathing, real breathing becomes less and less. And so it can be so transformative to really just make yourself take 3 deep breaths 6 times a day, 3 times a day, 2 times a day. It's getting, I work a lot with the nervous system, because our nervous system is really in charge of healing in a lot of ways. For example, if your nervous system is in this stressed out fight or flight state at all times, there's no energy going towards repair. So it's really, breaking it down, finding these simple ways that you can just start to make step-by-step changes in your daily experience, in your daily habits, without feeling overwhelmed by like, okay, here's your health program and now you're going to do everything differently. Like that doesn't usually work out.
Right. That definitely does not usually work out. I like the simplicity of it. It's like just breathing, and that's something that's obviously free. It's in abundance. There's air everywhere. And again, we have the technology to be able to remind us if we are so busy that we even forget to breathe, and just like your alarm goes off and like, hey, take 3 deep breaths. You're like, oh yeah, I have time for this. Yeah, I can do this. Right.
Yeah. And it'll be shocking at times it was for me, is like, sometimes I will turn that alarm off. I will be like, no, I will not breathe right now. And that in and of itself is interesting to learn.
Yeah,
right?
I literally, everything else is more important than breathing, which it is. Yeah. When you're kind of removed from it, you're like, well, that's weird. Why would I even ever think that? Right.
No, but it's true. Those alarms will go off and be like, no, not now. I'm busy, Yeah. And, I work with a lot of things, my, one of the things I always say to myself when I'm working with somebody is eliminate the duh. And to me, what that means is like someone comes to me with digestive problems, right? So, sometimes we want to overcomplicate things like, oh, I'm bloated all the time and I'm just not digesting. Okay, it must be a major food allergy or a big disease. And sometimes I'm like, well, are you chewing your food? No, I'm not. I'm not chewing. Chewing is like, if someone listening to this happens to have a digestive problem and no one's ever said like, hey, try chewing intentionally a lot, that's always the first course of action. And I've seen it so many times be radically changing, because that's another thing. We get into it's the same thing. We're in this sort of revved up state. We maybe have 20 minutes to eat our lunch. And if you're eating a salad, you're barely chewing it. And then your digestive system has to do all that work, which leads to a lot of, can lead to problems for certain people. So again, I'm always coming back to these really simple, keep it easy, keep it gentle is really mottos that I tell myself in my own life, and with clients, because it doesn't have to be this like hard regimented thing. Most people that want to improve their wellness need less of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone's tried every fad diet and everything out there, but right. How often are you taking deep breaths, and how often are you adequately chewing your food? Let's go down the food route for a minute.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because you mentioned like setting timers and setting alarms and stuff like that. So I'm thinking maybe something like this might be beneficial, like setting a timer maybe at how many, is there like a number, like how many bites or how many chews should you take per swallow? Like what is the number?
Ideally it's 20 to 25. Most people, when I was first learning how to chew, I would go to restaurants or whatever and just watch and count people chewing and be like, wow, they only chewed 3 times. Oh my God, he only chewed 2 times, And so what I do is, now it's second nature. So this is a very rewarding habit because your body really does pick up on it quickly. Like now it is innate to me. I do not have to think about chewing. I'm always chewing my food. Yes. However, when you first start, I think just counting in your head. And I tell people choose 1 meal a day because it's actually really, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to slow down that much to actually chew. Yeah. So I'm just like, choose 1 meal a day. And for that 1 meal a day, make sure you have time and space. I don't care if you're watching TV or doing whatever you think you're not supposed to do when you're eating. But just count every single bite of food and count to 20 every single time. Even if it's something, and here's the key, even if it's a smoothie, even if it's oatmeal, even if it doesn't really matter, because there's all these enzymes in our mouth, and digestion starts in the mouth. And so our mouth is sort of sending signals to the rest of our digestive tract, like here's what's coming, and there's enzymes that are breaking down the food so that the digestive system lower down doesn't have to work as hard. So it's a really, really important process, chewing.
Right. And especially the saliva, I think, has especially the enzyme that digests carbohydrates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we can just completely just like, I mean, like, for example, a friend of mine has digestive issues, and when he eats fruit, if he just inhales the fruit, it just gives him all kinds of issues. Versus like if he chews adequately and mixes the saliva, I mean, he was up and going to the bathroom in like 5 minutes. He's like, oh, yep, it's working.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's real interesting. And like you said, it sort of communicates with the stomach, like, hey, this is what's coming down the pipe. You know, we got some fruit coming down, or we got some meat, or whatever you just ate, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, again, like, you know, I've done all that, like mindful eating and don't have any distractions and all this stuff. And I think that that's a lot to ask of someone that's already stressed out about food and stressed out about eating. So it can be really simple. Like one bite, you really notice what you're eating. Oh, wow, look at this lettuce, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be this whole change. Like now I'm going to, you know, chew everything perfectly. It's just, again, it's like the same thing with the breathing. It's just taking every single day, taking those small steps towards where you want to be. Because if you just say to someone like, hey, Chris, you're going to chew your food, every single thing you put in your mouth 25 times a day, and that's it. And it's like, cool, maybe you'll do that for a day or two, and then you'll be like, forget this. This is not happening, you know?
Right. I like that. Just one meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you permission to keep your other habits that you had. Maybe you really only have 3 minutes to eat your lunch. And for me to tell you, or for you to tell somebody like, hey, you got to chew your food every single time, that maybe is unrealistic. So I like that kind of step-by-step realistic approach. How do clients respond to it? Like, what do you see initially? Is there resistance? And then like 1 month, 6 months down the line, like what's kind of like a typical result track that you see?
Well, recently, this was my favorite. You know, I was working with this woman, and a lot of people that end up coming to me are people that have tried everything. Like that's sort of who ends up in my lap, metaphorically, not physically. But she said, I've tried every diet. I've tried every this. I'm just so bloated. I said, okay, great. And she was very resistant. She was like, I'm not changing what I eat. I'm like, you don't have to. It's totally fine. Let's just try chewing. So she literally texted me the next morning, and she was like, I'm not bloated. Oh my God. She said what's interesting is she said she felt really sort of ashamed and sad because it was so simple. And I said, you know, yeah, of course that's going to come up too, because it's like you've been avoiding this thing, you know, but yeah, things like that happen all the time where it's like a day later. And then usually what happens is there's a period where then, like with everything, you start to feel better and you kind of forget about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's usually this wave with chewing. It's like initially people are like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm so much less bloated. I have so much more energy. And then because they feel less bloated and have more energy, they kind of let it go a little bit. And then they're like, oh, I let it go. And then it comes back. And it's just kind of this wave that happens until, like, you know, it does end up evening out for most people, where they sort of kind of come into balance with it. It just becomes part of their life. And I'll say, for example, my husband, who of course is my unwilling client at all times, you know, he now sort of does it. He's like, oh man, I'm really bloated. I must not be chewing. You know, it's just like, it just becomes this thing that gets incorporated.
Yeah. That's great. I'm really glad you said that thing about where, you know, you'll get the habit, you'll get it down, and then you sort of forget about it. It goes back down. That sort of takes any burden off of anyone's shoulders who's watching this into thinking that they have to be perfect right off the bat. Because as easy as it sounds, like even a few minutes ago when you said, when I was first learning to chew, like that just struck me as like, you know, like we learned to chew. Well, we learned to chew originally when we're like 1-2 years old.
Yeah.
And relearning how to chew is definitely something that, you know, like breathing, it's like, oh, it's right in front of me the whole time. And I just needed to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting if you watch babies, if you have the opportunity to watch a baby that's just starting to eat food, they will eat the same cracker for like an hour. Like,
Oh man, that
like,
cracker is like a mush. The cracker turns into like this oatmeal looking thing. It's so gross.
exactly. They're like holding it, there's saliva all over it. And there's so much intelligence in that, right? Because they're really like, by the time it gets to their intestines, like the intestines don't have to do anything. It's just like already digested for them. So it's interesting. A lot of these healthy habits are things that are innate to us, and we just need to wake them up again. Like
Right.
it's innate to us to chew. It's innate to us to take deep breaths. It's innate to us to get out in the sun every day. And I think like, that's just, I think if anyone takes anything from our conversation, it's like, it doesn't have to be difficult, and there is no rush. There's no rush to have the perfect health right now. Like just slowing down and being, something that I come back to a lot too. You were asking in the beginning about how to work with chronic illness and how do you get towards a chronic wellness state, is just being happy with where my health is at today and remembering where I've come from. Wow, 5 years ago this, 2 years ago that. And sometimes you have to have other people remind you, because it's harder when you're the one going through it. But really just affirming for yourself that this is something that I'm committed personally myself to lifelong wellness. I'm excited about it. It's what I want. And if it's something that excites you, which I'm guessing most people watching this are at least a little excited about health and wellness.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Then just know that you can take it slow. You have your whole life, and there's no rush and there's no hurry to have the perfect health right now. Just enjoying where you're at is going to be helpful in getting you where you want to go.
Right. Totally true. Yeah. Well, Cody, I want to give you a chance to that already. You just did a motivational speech right there, but I'm going to give you a chance to do a bigger motivational speech.
You
This is
betcha.
the last question that I like to end on is
Sure.
like really big picture, goals, life principles in general. If you're addressing, let's say, like a graduating class, and you're giving a talk, 1 minute talk on how to get the most out of your life.
No pressure. All right. Yeah, I got that. I would say slow down. Slow down is my biggest principle. Slow down, be gentle, take care of your body. It might not seem like, if you are someone that's watching this that is already healthy and they do feel good already, revel in that and take care of that. The more we take care of ourselves, the more we honor what our body needs in a moment-to-moment basis, the more we love ourselves, the more we wake up and spend time being like, oh, I love you. You're so amazing, body. Even if you don't believe it, just saying those words, it's not only going to improve your physical well-being, but it's going to improve your emotional well-being, your ability to enjoy life. Like taking care of our bodies is the gift that keeps on giving, because if you don't have your health, you truly don't have much. Look, you can enjoy life in whatever state of health you're at. But if your goal is to be healthy and vibrant and make a big splash in the world, it's going to be a lot easier to do that in a body that feels vibrant and alive. So I would say take it easy, be gentle on yourself, keep learning, keep exploring, and just be open to what comes your way.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody, for that.
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you? How do people learn more about what you do and
Sure.
chewing and websites?
How to chew.
How to chew and how to breathe, right?
How to chew and how to breathe. Simple thing. Yeah. So I'm on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram at agency_wellness, just like it sounds. And you can also go on my website, which is agencywellness.org. Yeah, that's the main ways.
Agency Wellness. Nice. Well, again, this is Health in the Real World with Cody Maher. I'm Chris Janke, and thank you again, Cody, for joining me today.
Thanks. My pleasure. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.